Hello and welcome. We have the honor of having Dr. Judith Mills-Bramble with us today. She's a family physician and a lifestyle medicine doctor who's going to share with us her journey into being whole food plant-based, as well as how she encourages patients to be a whole food plant-based and embrace the lifestyle medicine world that will improve our health and empower us to just live longer, better lives. Welcome, Dr. Bramble.
Thank you so much for having me today. I am so excited to share.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I am, as you said, family medicine doctor. Been practicing for about 11 years. I am also mother of 4 kids, married. We run a small family farm. We live in northern Minnesota, so we really like the rural life, and have been practicing plant-based eating for at least 10 years now.
Oh, wow,
And
that's a long time.
yeah, so it's been a wonderful transition. I wasn't always, and I adopted this actually through my faith. And as I learned more, and I was like, a lot of patients really need to learn more about eating this way, because I was coming across that border, or just that wall of having patients come in with the same issues over and over again, and many of the issues were treatable by lifestyle medicine, just by changing what they eat. And so I just started to talk about it more and become more like that advocate, or that voice in my facility as the lifestyle doctor. And then I decided to just become board certified about a year ago. So it's been really a wonderful journey for me.
A blessing for your patients.
Yes.
I know your patients must be so honored that you did this, because you're helping so many people more than just yourself.
Yeah.
So how did you start? I mean, you said it was faith-based, but what in your personal life made you find
Yeah.
lifestyle medicine?
So actually, I became baptized in a Seventh-day Adventist faith, and as I started to learn more about your body being the temple, right, and how we're supposed to treat it, and I kind of knew about it, but I didn't realize food had that impact also on how your body's supposed to work. And so even though I went through medical school and you're going through training, we didn't really learn a lot about nutrition. Not in the scope of really helping to change lifestyle or change your medical problems. And although I didn't have medical problems per se, chronic issues, I started to learn more about how just simple changes, even through my faith, through my church, because we did a lot of church-based health ministries and doing health fairs, and just learning like, wow, it doesn't all have to be medication based, it doesn't have to be pharmacological, and just simple changes, and seeing it in people's lives of the health fairs that we were doing. And I was like, well, maybe I can carry this back to my practice and start talking about this, because we were talking to people in the community about this, and it's simple, it's something that they have empowerment over. And so that is how I started to really to talk more about it and become bold, because at that time it wasn't something you really speak about. You do pharmacological treatments, but you tell people go and lose weight and eat better. And I said that too, but I didn't really know what that meant. So if I didn't know what that meant, I definitely know my patients didn't know what that meant. And so now I felt a little bit more empowered, because then now I can say, this is how you eat better. Give people really more specific instructions. And because I was taking that myself and I felt more enlivened, I was able to speak more honestly and truthfully and just with more vigor to my patients. And I think that gave them the confidence, because now I'm not just kind of saying words, I'm explaining what I do, and then giving them a little bit of tidbits of how they can follow. And so, it was just a wonderful feeling to be able to kind of give people empowerment. That's been my thing, empower people to make the changes that they want to make.
That's wonderful. I know we in America live in this sick care model that lifestyle medicine is trying to change into more of a preventative and just kind of a whole life model.
Yes.
I love, and your including faith is so important to so many patients.
Yes.
And you talked about messages. So are there like top 3 messages that you have for someone who is faith-based already, but may not know anything about nutrition, just to help them start their
Yeah.
journey?
Yes, I mean, the first one is the body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. And that's been, when we think of it that way, it's like, well, what do I do to this body in order to make it work at its best? Because I tell people, listen, you know, God does not want you to be sick. That's not the purpose. It really wants you to be empowered, to be lively, and to be a really good witness to others. And by even just how you look in your body, that's a great witness to others. And then you start to feel more energetic, and again you can do more. And so those are the real big messages, is just to really treat this body with it's precious. We only have it once on this earth, and just to treat it well. And God wants you to be healthy and wealthy and wise, basically. So if you can do those things, small things, and He never gives us anything that we can't do. You know, everything that that is instructed or given, it's very simple. And that's what some people think of. It's going to be complicated. I have to do all these different things. I have to buy strange stuff. No, very simple message, simple eating, and then you'll see really, really, really great changes. So yeah, it's powerful.
I love that. So, I mean, people do forget that, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
you think about toxins as alcohol and tobacco and drugs, but food can also be very toxic if you're not putting the
Yes.
right food in your body. So, that is very important to remember
Yeah, I
as
think
well.
there's a quote. I don't know if it's Anne Wigmore that state the food can be your slowest form of poison to the system.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and and people don't realize every little bit that they put in their mouth could be fueling them or could be poisoning them. Absolutely.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
So how did you incorporate it into your professional life? Was it just kind of a natural flow, or since you're a lifestyle medicine doctor, do you
Yeah.
primarily teach lifestyle medicine to your patients now, or
Everything is
how is that?
incorporated. I try to incorporate lifestyle in most conversation. You know, there's some level of discernment that is needed to see if that person is welcoming or want to welcome that information at that time. It all depends on the situation. But yes, even before I became board certified, I was incorporating it into my practice. You know, dealing with the prominent chronic illnesses, diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular issues, that just, it came out, it came out in that way. And what I started to do, because I saw, one of the number one things I saw was, well, I can tell you you need to eat better. I can tell you need to get more vegetables and fruits into your diet and more grains. But what I saw was people needed to see it. They actually need to see how to do it. So what I coordinated with my facility, my hospital, and I asked if I could put on programs. So I did more voluntary based, and I started to do like a healthy living series, just like 8 classes. And then I would bring the patients at the end of the culmination of the course to my local church, because I could use their kitchen and then cook for the patient. So those who are enrolled in it, we would do like a cooking program so they can taste and see. And that's another thing with taste and see that the Lord is good. And so I really wanted to follow that message of having our patients taste and see, because a lot of times people are saying, well, I don't know, I don't like this vegetable. I never liked it, but they never really cooked it a different way to enjoy it. How can we incorporate spices in your life so that you can have just a wonderful array of flavors? How can you change beans? How can you change vegetables to really suit the occasion? And how can you substitute, instead of using a lot of meats with your chili, how can you really bulk it up? So I started to do that, and it became very popular. We kind of course, with COVID amongst us now, that has stopped in some way. So I've been doing more things through Facebook and sharing recipes. But I felt like that connection of sharing recipes That's one of the things I did with the course, was I gave a little, as we went through the course and I developed more recipes, and I just started to share recipes with the patients, and they really enjoyed it. And simple, very, very simple recipes, so that if it's a bachelor who really doesn't cook all that, they can really adopt them to someone who's really good at cooking. They can start to incorporate things at their level. So I felt that the actual taste and see model was just super effective at helping our patients to say, okay, I can do this. I can do this. It's simple. I can make a sandwich with this and it tastes great. I can do pasta with this and it tastes great, you know? So that's what I truly believe is helping people, you know, see. And if you look through my Facebook page, you'll see some videos that I do with other people of cooking. Because, you know, really that we have to get back to the basis of, let's learn to cook well so you can eat well.
Love that.
Mhm.
So with COVID, I know we all know the immune system is helping some people survive and some people not survive. Can you talk a little bit about health and the current pandemic?
Yeah. You know, when March started and we started to see so many people pass away and having the complexities of with COVID, you know, I started to look at it and I realized that what's happening is our health and the way that our immune system is, some of us are not prepared. Um, have to have a strong immune system. Not that we're prepared to have COVID, but whatever it is that comes across our plate, whatever virus, bacteria. And once we start to strengthen that immune system, we have a better chance at survival. Now, to strengthen our immune system, we have to work on what we're putting in. And one of the number one things that we put in is food. You know, of course, rest and exercise is also very important, but one of the things that we're putting in constantly is food. And again, food can be our form of poison, or it can be something that really boosters us. And so, you know, I started to focus on how can I be of help to our community, for those who want to hear. And I started to do series on Facebook, just Facebook Lives, talking about how you can start to eat healthier, what you need to do, not necessarily any particular food, but how can we use just the array of foods that we have in order to help our immune system boost? Because knowledge is power. And I felt that we didn't, you know, we focus on the other things, such as in medicine, we definitely masking and prevention and things of that sort. But I felt that we lack the information about how food and our dietary choices can impact our survival. You know, so I felt that that was missing in this whole talk about the pandemic. And so I felt like I just needed to say that to others, to help them, to encourage them, because that's something that they can do. And again, it goes back to empowerment. What do you have in your pantry that can help you and your bodies be stronger? And a lot of times we don't recognize that we have this medicine cabinet in our pantry right there to help us to become stronger. And I just felt passionate about it because we are focusing on other things, but we are missing out on that big piece. Hey, guys, we need to be eating healthier so that our diabetes is better controlled, so you have a better survival. Your blood pressure is well, you know, well managed, so you have a better survival. Your cardiovascular issues, your kidney function. So all those things that we know that those who have significant comorbidities tend to have worse outcomes with particularly any virus, and particularly now with COVID. And to help people with their nutrition is one of the big keys that we can have patients empower themselves because they're doing it in their home. So yes, I just started talking about how we can do foods. Food
I
can be
think that's so
helpful.
important because people start fixating on like individual components. They talk
Yeah.
about like orange juice and vitamin C, and they don't think
Yes.
about the whole food package, and then
Yes.
they don't think about their own selves as a package. You
Yes.
know, that bacon is gonna not help you at all as much as a whole food plant-based diet. Do you have
Right.
some, so I don't want to focus on individual things, but do you have like some favorite foods that will build your immune system? Um,
Yes. I am in love with the cruciferous vegetables.
Me too. Tell us.
I love with the, I mean, I try to do seasonal, definitely, but right now, of course, the cauliflower and the broccoli, I just love those. And I do a lot of recipes incorporating you know, cauliflower, like doing a cauliflower taco meat, you know, and we don't recognize that we can use it for a taco meat, you know, the riced cauliflower. I love to do that. I put out a little video on that once, and people have been enjoying that. So it's just wraps, you know, just incorporating those into wraps and sandwiches. What people already do, nothing really like out of this world, but just incorporating more of it. And I do love my beans. Beans are a staple. And I say there's a bean for everyone.
What about those patients who are like, oh my gosh, cauliflower gives me gas? What would you say to them?
Yeah, so I said we have to build up over time. You know, I know the cruciferous vegetables can be, if you haven't really been into it before, it can be a little bit rough. But I say start small and build up. Incorporate it in baked goods, in the cauliflower taco meat, the riced cauliflower as just like your rice. You know, I don't really subscribe to like a low carb or, you know, whatever. It's just incorporating all these various foods into the diet. And as you start to build up, now one of the important things is that reason why we have these GI discomfort is because we don't really have the right bacteria in the gut yet. Mm-hmm. And we know from scientific evidence that as you start to eat and transform your diet into a more whole foods plant-based, your bacterial load changes. So the bacteria that was digesting a lot of meats and fats, we'll start to see those change to bacteria that will be digesting more of these kind of carbs and polysaccharides. So those bacteria changes, and we know that those bacteria that changes to the whole food plant-based diet, those bacteria helped actually to protect us, because now you're talking about gut flora and probiotics and prebiotics, and these are the ones that help with the immune fighting abilities. That's your first line of defense, if you want to consider it that way. So when people say, oh, I have, you know, issues against this or that, unless they have an allergy or they really have just a really horrible experience with a particular vegetable, I usually say try and incorporate in a different recipe, a different spice, and then see how it is. Because once our mind believe it, our body starts to achieve it. And so I tell them that all the time.
I totally agree with you. I tell people the same thing. Your body will adapt to change. And I say yes. It takes 21 days to build a habit. Give yourself at least 21 days for your stomach to adjust to a new diet. What is your timeline that you give to patients?
Yes, I say the same thing. It's about 21 days. And we see actually in a couple of research that came out, in 2 weeks alone, we can actually start to see changes in our gut bacteria. So the 21-day is a really good timeline to start off with, but 2 weeks alone, we start to see changes. So it's not difficult. Just pick a recipe that you like and use it, master it, and then move to the next. Don't try and do like 10 recipes at once. It's just impossible. Just one recipe at a time.
That's good advice. Now, did you have any barriers to change from your family or other people living in your house?
Well, I've been very fortunate. My husband actually was plant-based before we met. Oh, so wow. Yeah, he, well, mostly plant-based. So he was, you know, did a lot of bodybuilding, weightlifting, and transitioned to that earlier in his career with that. And showed, you know, the other guys around him that plant-based weightlifting is really, you're stronger. So that was really good. And then when we had kids, you know, before they really started to eat, we decided that we were going to start off plant-based because we just knew the data, the information, and we wanted to really have a family that changes our past medical history, meaning my family's medical history and his family's medical history, because I truly believe in what they call epigenetics, where over time you can get rid of out of your family certain things. And I have a stronger family history of diabetes and high blood pressure, and that's something I did not want to experience, and I don't want my children to experience if possible. So getting them off to a good start is what we decided together. My larger family, it took a while. now everybody's coming on board, which is really nice. So the consistency is key. I do have some family members who are still very significantly ill with their own chronic issues, but they're adopting more and more of the principles because we've been consistent. And so and the thing is, I felt like I've been very fortunate because when we meet as a family before COVID, of course, as far as the larger family unit, they always work to incorporate different meals in so that no one feels left out. And then of course we sharing meals with them and showing how tasty it can be has been very beneficial. So yeah, a lot of my family members have been adopting over time, and it's been nice to see that. So consistency is key.
That's amazing. I think you've
Yeah.
probably changed their entire like trajectory of life and
Yes.
cancer incidents. I mean, oh my gosh, you're amazing. That I can't believe you're doing that. That's
Right.
awesome. But I mean, more than just patients, your whole family. Your family sometimes is more resistant to change
Oh,
than patients.
yes.
Because patients will listen to you and the data, and the family just, sees you as a family member that may not listen to. Do you have to present scientific evidence to family members? Like, is there like one study that you tell them, like, look at this, and that makes
Yeah.
them change? Or is it just kind of an overall faith-based and holistic approach?
Right. So yes, and there's both to it. So I'll share with you. There was a book that was shared to me called How Not to Die. I don't know if you ever read it, by Dr. Greger. Um, that book was shared to me by a patient, actually, and this was before I really started to speak on it. And it was just a blessing. And I'll tell you how this comes together with my family. So that book was given to me. Well, actually, the website was shared with me by the patient, and this is a lady that her husband had significant medical history. He had prostate cancer and diabetes, and just going through the whole slew of that, right? And he was on the hormonal therapy for his prostate cancer. And her thing was, she was trying to find all ways to help him, and help herself too. How do they change? And she wanted a little bit more holistic. And they were coming to me, and they kind of heard that I talk a little bit about, health, but I didn't really do it in full throw at that time because it was kind of new, and it's unpopular. Not everybody else is doing it. And so they somehow found me. And so as she's talking to me, and I'm like, yes, yeah, that sounds good. Yes, definitely, incorporate a little bit of this. You can truly reverse your diabetes, definitely. But did I believe it? Not quite 100% yet. And so then when they kept seeing me, she came back with, I'm reading this book called How Not to Die. And I was like, interesting topic. Sure. And then, and she gave me the website. And it so happened I was in Costco one day, and I walked through the book section. I was like, oh, look, How Not to Die. Maybe I should pick it up. And I started to read it, and I was like reading these studies after study from high blood pressure, diabetes. And we're reading as we're driving back home, my husband and I. And I was like, hubby, did you know this? Look at this information. And that really fueled me after reading that book. And so I started to share that with my family members, because a lot of them are in the medical field, they're nurses. And even though they know certain things, they don't adopt, the healthy principles. I know we all have that issue. And so I started to share that scientific data with them, because I was like, you got to read this book. And as I read more, that's how I became even more emboldened to speak more about it to my patients, and more emboldened to even do our what we call noontime conferences or educational series at our hospital. And I was like, I'm going to talk about this. Other doctors need to know about this. And so it became a popular um, course to come to. And I was talking to other physicians and nurse practitioners, or whoever would come to those noontime conferences, about it, because I was getting this information and I just felt emboldened. I think that book really emboldened me to speak more on it, because of all the data that was there. And I just never saw we didn't read about these data. We didn't know any about these studies.
Right.
And it was just wonderful to know that there are studies out there that I can help and share with my colleagues. and my patients. Yeah.
I mean, his latest book, I think this year, was How to Survive a Pandemic, which I haven't read yet either, but I'm sure it's chock full of scientific
Oh,
data. And
yes,
he's just known for that.
yes,
And
yeah.
that's wonderful. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
So I encourage everyone to just start. You don't have to go full on. You know, a lot of people are like, well, I'm gonna miss my X, Y, and Z product, my, you know, beef, my this, my that, or I'm going to, one of the number one things that I hear in my small Facebook group is, well, you know, my family doesn't eat this way. How do I get my spouse on board? You know, things of that nature. And so I encourage people to start off small. Have a wonderful salad or a grain dish that you can eat also, and that they can also eat. So you don't have to go straight on. Yes, it's great if you can just go at it, but in order to preserve the sanity of yourself and your family, you don't have to, but just start to incorporate those things. And that's one of the things I teach in my classes when I was doing the classes and on the Facebook is, here's a nice little recipe you can add to your armamentarium of things to do. And then you'll start to have, you can do substitutes. I like to do substitute like flaxseed for eggs, you know, in recipes. And then, you know, people are like, well, I didn't notice any difference. I didn't notice any difference in the quality of the recipe. The taste of it was just as good. Oh, okay, well, I'll just adopt it. That's really easy and simple to do. So I encourage people, just, it's simple. Don't overcomplicate things. Start by just using one recipe or one ingredient, love it, and then move to the next. Be simple about it.
I totally agree. And I mean, everyone is sharing the message. And I think we're going to save, hopefully, a lot of lives. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've heard of the One Meal a Day book, and then Oprah interviewed um, the author and just spreading the message. And she's adopting the 1 meal a day, being
Oh,
vegan and
wonderful.
plant-based. So,
Yes.
yeah, so I love your
Yeah.
message.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh yeah, I've incorporated though 1 or 2 meals a day. Fasting is very important too. I've been teaching that in addition, as people have adopted improving on the choices of their meals, then we can work on how to decrease the insulin spikes that we get with eating too frequently. But I focus on, hey, when you're going to eat a meal, eat to satisfaction. And that's another thing that we, you know, when we talk about losing weight and making changes, people are thinking restriction, restriction, restriction. No, when you start to convert to whole food plant-based, I want you to eat to satisfaction. Eat till you feel really good, you're satisfied, there's satiety, and then you don't have to eat again for a while because you've had a really good fiber-filled meal that has all the minerals and electrolytes and all the wonderful things that our body needs to build and repair and improve on our immune system. And that is with being satisfied, not with restriction. Yeah.
Absolutely. I shared the same thing with my nutrition coaching clients. Like, you must eat till you're full.
Yes.
And everyone
Yes.
thinks it's restriction. It's absolutely not. So you mentioned fasting. We didn't really get into that at all, but that's a
Yeah.
huge separate topic.
Oh, yes, I know. It's big.
But you use that for weight loss as well, incorporating with a
Yes.
whole food plant-based diet. So
Yes.
maybe we can do another episode on
Yeah.
fasting, because I know that that's another like huge topic.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, whenever. Yeah, it's a wonderful topic, and it's great to teach once someone has learned some of the basics about the choices of foods, then we can start to go on to the layering, how to improve on weight loss and making changes to our immune system by layering some other things on. So yeah, but definitely first start off with how do I eat and what do I eat? And whole foods is the way to go.
Okay, and lastly, some fun information about Dr. Mills-Bramble is she has a bee farm. Can you tell us a little bit more about your bee farm?
Yes, so my husband and I, again, we live on a hobby farm and we do bread and honey. And so we got into keeping bees in the past several years. And I know in the community of Whole Foods, sometimes honey is controversial as whether or not it's, completely vegan or not. I don't really ascribe to the vegan philosophy necessarily. I really focus on whole foods, so plants, grains, and so forth. And for me, and of course my family, we love the idea that we're getting some of the nectar from the flowers, things that that some people say are medicinal. It's a great sweetener. And also the other aspect of it is taking care of God's creatures. And that's one of our things, is to take care of these bees and provide a wonderful home for them, continue to help them, because we know that in this time that we have, our bees are dying unnecessarily, whether it's some of the practices out there, some of the pesticide, things of that nature. So we do completely organic living and home life and on our farm, because we want our place to be a safe haven for these pollinating insects. And so part of that, we get the benefit of some of that honey. We do sell it so that we can continue to provide that environment. And it's just a wonderful sweetener. But again, for those who are working towards weight loss or diabetes, everything needs to be in moderation, in small amounts. It's a wonderful product, but again, you don't want to use it too much and too frequently. So we really love providing products that are raw, organic to the community at large, because then they know that we are providing for our bees and keeping this place a wonderful little sanctuary for our pollinators. Yeah. So I love it. I love it. It's an interesting thing to get into beekeeping. I never thought I would be here.
I love it. I think you're providing so much value to everyone, your patients, your family, the environment. We're so honored that you took some time to spend with us today. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
We were
I'm really,
chatting
really honored to
offline,
be
and
here.
Dr.
I
Mills-Bramble
hope
said
you learned
something so
something from
amazing. I
Dr.
had to bring her back
Mills-Bramble.
for
If
you
you
to
have
hear one more thing from
questions, let
her.
us know. But this was wonderful. Thank you. And your last words, Dr. Bramble.
So yeah, so one of the things I'm really passionate about is that we have this data, we have this information about what nutrition can do for us. And I feel it's complete negligence not to be able to share that information. It's a part of the informed consent. If I have a really good medication for a high blood pressure, diabetes, whatever, I'm obligated to share that information with my patients. And they're then have the information to be able to say if they want this medication or not. I also think of it with whole foods, plant-based. We have this data that's there. It's such a abundant data. And I feel it's really in my power and my, one of the things that I need to do is to share that data with my patients so that they can make a choice, an informed consent about how to treat and go about their medical problems. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones that's living with that medical problem. And my job as an educator, which is what a physician is to share it. It's the same concept of, the house is on fire, right? You see your neighbor's house on fire. You're not going to whisper, hey, get out of there. You are going to shout it from the hilltop. You're going to want to go there and help them out. And it's the same thing. I see that our temple, our bodies on fire. We are riddled with chronic illnesses that can be reversed. We can stop some of these things. We can treat it. We can kind of hold it off. We can decrease the medication burden, of our patients. So we can even decrease the cost if they're not having to take multiple medications that's causing multiple other side effects. So I feel that it's in within my duty as a physician, as an educator, to go and help them to prevent that fire, to stop that fire, to hold it off, to call attention to it by giving a whole breadth of knowledge to whole foods, plant-based, and how that patient can then help themselves. So it's so important that as we learn more as educators, as physicians, to share this information. And I think it really is something that our medical schools need to really start to incorporate into our education, so we can be armed. We can have a whole slew of health providers that are more armed to be able to help our patients, empower them. Because one of the number one things is sometimes we just give up. I'll let you know just real quick. I had a story. This is very impactful for me. Had a patient, middle age, 60s maybe, age group, and she had significant coronary artery disease, been stented. There was like really nothing else to really stent, and she had really tiny coronary arteries, right? And she had chronic angina, which is pain whenever she did exercise, pain to the heart spasming basically. And one of the things what we used to talk to her about, I said, hey, we need to adapt more whole foods. And her problem was her husband and children, they ate a classical diet, meat and potatoes, and that's what they've grown up with. And I would send her to the dietitian team, and they said, oh, no, you need to eat this instead. And then she'll come back to me again with, no, this is what the dietary team says. It doesn't need to be whole food, plant-based. But she was in pain. She could not exercise to lose the weight. She could not make changes to help with her diabetes because it was one vicious cycle. And to me, it was a sad story. And I think that's one of the things that it just, things that resonate in your head that make you want to make a change. And we were talking, and I was like, okay, we're going to do this. I want you to incorporate maybe this recipe. And she just flat out got so frustrated with me because she felt like her father died from cardiovascular disease and diabetes. The cardiologist says, hey, we can't really do anything for you at this point in time. She can't walk, and her outlook was just dismal. I'm just waiting for that big moment of death, right? That big moment when I'm in pain. And she got so frustrated, just kind of, she just really just laid her frustration on me, like, I cannot do this. And you want me to change my eating, and that's what's going to do this? I've spoken to every specialist there is, and no one else has ever told me about eating changes and da da da. So I cannot be helped. I cannot be helped. And that was her message to herself. I cannot be helped. And I felt so sad at that because I was like, no, you can be, but she just didn't believe it. And I don't know whatever happened to her, if she had passed away or whatever, because she kind of just gave up because everyone said, this is it. You cannot be helped, right? And so I think as a healthcare provider, as a physician, we have to give hope. And that, I think, with the dietary component, we have that additional hope. We've maxed out on many medications, but we have that additional hope that we can give our patients. Because for her, like I said, what the mind believes, the body will achieve. So she's going to go towards decline because the mind has been convinced that she cannot be helped. So I never want that to have her happen to another one of my patients, where the message is you cannot be helped with something like whole foods, when we know it can be helpful and we have the data. So it's so important that we all share this message, because we have so many patients who believe they cannot be helped because they've been told that way. And we could be that one person that make that change, that they then make a change in your family. And all of a sudden we have a whole community that's changing for the better. So, I mean, I'm so thankful that you're doing this, because a lot of patients can be helped. They just have been told information that has been half truth. They haven't been given the whole package yet to be able to have that informed consent or that informed knowledge. So thank you for doing this.
I love that. I mean, that is so powerful. Like, your house is on fire, and it's negligent for us not to tell you how to put the fire out. And love that message. Yeah. Thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing. We'll keep doing what we're doing.
Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.